Hello everyone and welcome back to WSO2 Bytes. So, do you need to transform your API request on the fly, like adding custom headers or perhaps implement a sophisticated logging? You don't always need to code this into your backend services. Welcome to our quick guide on WSO2 policies or mediation sequences in API Manager. It's a powerful tool that helps you put in control of your API traffic. Here is the quick agenda for the video. We'll see about the introduction to WSO2 policies or mediation sequences, where and why to use, type of policies, default policies in API Manager 4, how to create a policy, some sample use cases, followed by best practices and a demo. Introduction to WSO2 policies. So WSO2 policies are typically the rules that modify the API requests or responses during the runtime, and it works as a middleware for APIs. So core concept of this is it is the process of intercepting, transforming and enriching the messages, typically the request and responses, as they flow through the API gateway. The policy, which is typically a mediation policy, it's an XML file. It's based on Apache Synapse configuration language that defines the sequence of mediators that executes its logic. It is also called as a gateway's versatile toolkit because it allows you to add custom logic to your APIs without changing the backend service code. So the question comes, why and where to use it? Okay. So in a typical scenario, we have a client application which makes an HTTP call or the asynchronous call to your API gateway. API gateway does the security checks and governance, and then it sends the request to the backend service. Now, with the help of WSO2 policies or the mediation sequences, API gateway is getting powered to make the changes in the request and the responses. Okay. Also, it can pass additional data to the backend service which is not passed by the client, or it has been modified at the gateway level and then it sends to the backend service. So why to use it? So we can have a scenario like the backend service accepts the message in the JSON format, the client is sending the XML. So we can do the payload modification in the structures and for the message payload changes. Content enrichment, like we can add as custom headers or the query parameters or the body content from external sources such as database or other APIs. Protocol switching, handle a REST request and transform it to call to a SOAP backend. Custom logic, we can implement a logging, threat protection, input validation and much more. Traffic management, like we can add a conditional routing and a load balancing for the scenarios. It's applicable at API level and operation level. So if we can define a policy which is applicable for entire API level or a specific operation or the resource, we can choose where it will be applied. How to apply the same? So it can be applied via the request inflow, response flow, which is typically the outflow or the fault flow. Okay. So here is a typical screen where you can see that it is on the API level or the application or the operation level. Okay, and here you can see the resources where we can attach the policies, where we can select the resource and attach the policies. Okay, what are different type of policies? So policies are applied at different scopes, giving you a granular control. Global policies affect every single API on the gateway, perfect for universal security or logging purpose. API specific policies apply to one API, and more granular are API resource policies, which target a specific method and a path, like HTTP post method or a specific like post order API or the post order resource. You can say they execute exact in this order. Okay, so you can see we have a global policies, API specific and the API resource policies. Okay, for any specific requirement we can create a custom sequence of specific mediators and can be reused as a custom policy. Okay, so the execution order is first, the global policy takes the precedence, followed by the API level and then the resource level. There are certain default policies in API Manager 4. Earlier versions were also facilitating, but API Manager version 4 comes with more like a list of default policies. So with the help of this capability, we can just drag and drop, followed by configuring the policy at the API level or the resource level. Okay. So once we go to the particular API, we go to the policy list, or we can directly go to the policy list, and we can see we have a custom policies, like common policies and API policies. So we have a predefined list of policies. As you can see here, they are having a different colors. So we can take a selection of respective policy and we can apply. Kindly note that these are the default policies. So kindly go through the policy, what this policy is all about, what it does actually, what it adds to uh, the request or not. So be very careful while you are adding the policy. Now the question comes, there are certain capabilities which is out of the box, but what about the scenario which is not getting fulfilled with this? The answer is the custom policy. Okay, so we can create a custom policy, but how to create the same? So for any custom requirements, API manager allows you to create a custom policy, which is typically the XML based file where you define a sequence of mediators for achieving the desired outcome. So the first step is that you create a policy in a XML format like this. You define a sequence, then you define the property name. For example, in this scenario, you add a property mediator, then you have given a name and a value and the scope of this particular mediator. Okay, and step number 2 is that you save this file and go to the policy section, upload policy via publisher portal, and you save it that particular policy. Okay, so you define the policy name, version, and etc, other details, other relevant details, and you upload the XML file, and that's done. Okay, if any error comes, API manager will stop you at that particular moment that there is an issue with the policy. So fix that. You can check that issues via the logs. Okay, so the next step, once the policy is available, you can just drag and drop to your API or at the particular operation, or you can say the resource, and once it is added, you are good to save and deploy the new revision. Kindly note that you must deploy a new revision with this policy change, otherwise the changes will not reflect in your logs or whatever operation you are trying to do so. Let's check out some of the sample use cases to understand the business scenarios where this policies will be helpful. Okay, let's check it out. The first use case, request logging. There are certain scenarios where we do not want to log everything, okay, or we want to log everything. Okay, so in that scenario we can use the default policy, or if you would like to log only a specific parameter from the body, from the header, or from the transport. Okay, so we are good to use this custom logging via the custom policy. Okay, so via inflow or the outflow we can attach a particular policy. You can see the synapse snippet over here. So in this example I have given the log level full. You can give a log level custom and log specific parameter over there, adding a custom header. So let's say our backend accepts the specific header, so we would like to add the custom header via the gateway. So first we take the parameters from the request, we make some modification, create, construct a custom header, and then we send it to the backend service. Transform the response. This is one of the most powerful capability or the scenario which is used typically, that you send a particular payload to the API gateway, then API gateway makes the changes like SOAP to JSON, like XML to JSON, JSON to XML, etc. Apart from that, there is a capability that it modifies the payload, but be very careful that what kind of requirement you are trying to achieve. For lightweight operation this is fine, but if it is a heavy operation, it will definitely increase the performance of the API. So be very careful when you are going to choose that. So here we have discussed 3 sample use cases where this mediation policy is helpful via API manager to achieve a desired outcome. Let's talk about some of the best practices. Every capability comes with its pros and cons, so be very careful that uh, when you are going to start this particular capability. Okay, so start simple. So at very first try to use the inbuilt templates or inbuilt the policies, so that you get the confidence that how it works actually. You can even download the policy, you can see the code, and accordingly you can make your own policies. Okay, so that the try me feature in the source editor gives you the capability to check your logic before you are going to make live this API, or you are going to roll out this revision live. Always try to create a custom policies for the logic that can be used across multiple APIs to avoid duplication. So if you are going to work on a project which uses a certain set of capabilities, so try to have, instead of creating a multiple like the policies, if possible try to create a single policy with reusable logic, uh, to avoid duplication. Error handling, always include a fault sequence, typically a try catch kind of a blocks, which comes inside the fault sequence to handle the errors gracefully. Performance is one of the benchmark which is set by different organizations in their projects, so be very careful when you are going to apply the policies. So try avoiding the complex logic like having scripts in the critical path, like sometimes some developers use the script mediator or some custom complex logic over there. It will take a time to process this request for end-to-end operation. Irrespective the backend has processed, your client will face a delay from the gateway end. Uh, Try to use the value operation instead of XPath wherever possible for better performance. Log level full. Be cautious if you still have to use this log level full, try to use that for a limited time and then roll back to the custom one or try to remove this. Okay. From the security perspective, don't try to log sensitive data like password tokens or the PII, which is personal identifier, from the message payload. Always test the policies in a development environment before moving to production. Okay, now we'll see a demo. Since this is the very first video, I will be covering other videos as well. So in this video, we'll see a sample log policy to our default PizzaShack API. I will enforce this policy to get menu and the post order operation. We'll deploy a new revision and we'll test and verify the logs. So let's begin the demo. So first let's verify our API manager instance is running. As you can see, the PizzaShack API has been opened. So we'll go to the policy section and we see here that we have a API level and the operation level. For this demo, we'll go for the operation level policies enforcement. Expand the common policies. We are just going to attach this log policy over here. Out of the box, it will ask whether we want to apply this for all the resources, but we'll go with this resource only. So this is for post order and we'll attach for the get menu as well. Okay, so this will save and deploy. So we have added log policy. So now you can see we have a next revision, which is revision 3 available. We'll see the logs which has been added. So now we are good to test the API. We go to the developer portal, go to the API, try out. First we'll try with the menu resource, execute. Okay, so we need to generate the token. First we need to log in actually. Okay, so now it will, with the default application, it will generate the temporary access token. Go to the menu resource, try out, execute. So we have received the response. Now go to see the logs. You can see in the log mediator we have seen certain things. Okay, now let's hit again. Since it doesn't have a body, but it prints in the log mediator that we have put the log policy. Okay, let's see via the post order API, post order resource basically. So let's say we give a customer name. I give my name, Puma. It's New Delhi. I go for a large pizza. Credit card number. Oops, I don't give the real one. Quantity is 1. Order ID, let's say I give 001. Let's hit the request. So it has created 201. Let's go to the logs. So now you can see that the log mediator has successfully captured all the payload because it has a log level full. Okay, so this way we have seen how this log level the log policy can be enforced via publisher portal, and it has been applied and we have tested out the same. Okay, So thank you very much for your time, and we'll see you in next video.